Hi folks, how you doing? Here we are to continue our series on Carlsen's great predecessors throughout US chess history to see and review some short games played by the world chess champions. And today's video is going to be focused on Alexander Alekhine, or Alekhine like the Russians would say, a legendary world champion he was a world champion in the 20s, I think. And well, his life was really very interesting one, a very exciting life. He had to survive through revolutions, through wars, through lots of difficult situations. He had to kind of escape to France. He was a Russian player. He was Russian. He was born in a high-level, wealthy family. Then had to go to France. Had to survive in the Second World War. Had a really interesting life. If you can check his biography out there, I'm sure you will be amazed. He was one of the best players in those days, and one of the first truly great attackers of the 20th century. He is still considered one of the best attackers in chess history, and his combinations are really spectacular. It is not difficult to find miniature games played by him. I select the game from a tournament played in St. Petersburg, Russia, in 1912. And here Alekhine is white against Grigory Levenfish, a really strong player who was more or less in the elite for long years. So there we go with the game. d4, c5, and d5. No, not the most common way of playing, but okay. Now this transposes into kind of a Benoni game, e4 and g6. f4 is, I think it's called the Taimano variation, more or less, and the modern treatment of this line has been very, as far as I know, has been very dangerous for black, so it is one of the reasons that lots of players stopped playing the Benoni. Now here, Levenfish played knight bd7, which I think is considered to be not the most accurate. Main line goes like something like this: bishop g7, bishop b5 check, and black wants to be very careful here, because something like knight bd7, a really natural looking move, is met by e5, and well, now g4 is threatened, and also this pawn on e5 is threatening to go to e6, and black must be very careful here to not fall into a lost position very soon. Instead, with bishop b5 check, I think it's more normal to put the other knight there, and then white plays a4 to strengthen that b5 square. But okay, very theoretical, very complicated lines. But going back to the game, after g6, f4, knight bd7 was played by Levenfish, knight f3, and here a6. Probably already not a good move, because he's letting Alekhine to go into the center with this e5. Now takes, these couple of strong pawns in the center, as we are told when we learn to play this game, play chess, can be very strong and very dangerous. So knight g4, trying to recapture it, but Alekhine doesn't let him capture it that easily. The pawn keeps advancing, e6. Now Levenfish doesn't take it. He plays knight e5, protecting on f7. Now had he taken, now this pawn is restricting on e6 is restricting black's position really a lot, and cramping his black's position. Now knight b6 or else, and after take, bishop g5, knight g5, sorry, protecting the pawn, also threatening to go on f7 with check. And well, after moving this bishop out of c1 and castling long, white will have lots of initiative, tons of initiative against black king, which is going to be a little bit unsecure here, and this pawn is really having a massive effect on black's position. So this probably wouldn't make Levenfish the happiest player in the world. So he got to e5 with the pawn on d7. Now bishop f4, attacking, developing. Knight takes, g takes. The point is, if queen takes, now f takes, and now white probably could take here, but Alekhine takes with the pawn and chases that knight back out of g4. Now knight f6 and bishop c4. Yet developing another pawn. I believe that taking here probably should be good as well, because now white will play queen d2, castle long, and this king in the center, more or less in the center, could have some problems. But anyway, bishop c4. Although Engines don't like the move that much. It develops a piece, puts the bishop in more or less normal square, so it can't be that bad. F takes, d takes. Now at this point, queen b6 probably correct, but because if black takes on d1, rook takes. Now note that black king doesn't have any square to go to if he's checked with some piece. Both these squares are taken with this pawn, and d8 is defended by the rook on d1. So black could find himself into some trouble. b5, I mean, is not possible probably, because take, check. Of course, going into d7 would lose the piece back with lots of attack, and the king after king f8, this is going to be checkmate. So exchanging on d1, the queens on d1 probably wasn't better either. So queen b6, they're trying to stay a little bit active, create some threats on his own. Now queen e2, queen takes b2, and what does Alekhine do here? He's already has this knight and this rook under attack. It seems he's blundered something, because taking on b2 seems great now, because he's going to take either the rook or the knight or both. What do you do here? Well, you don't sacrifice a piece, but you sacrifice two. Knight b5. Now black can choose between taking here or taking on e1. Obviously he takes the rook, which seems much more valuable piece. And here goes the world champion, the magician of the tactics, and he sacrificed yet another rook, saying black, go ahead, take the second rook. Of course, exchanging queens here makes no sense, because white is down a rook, and he's going to be down another piece when black takes here. So obviously, when you let black take your rook on a1, you have to go for the sacrifice of the second rook, but knowing that you have a decisive attack on black king, which is really in a bad situation. Now knight c7 check, king d8, queen d2 check, bishop d7 more or less forced, and he take d7. At this point, I think Gregor Levenfish resigned. Although he has lots of material, lots of material, his king is really feeling miserable. White is threatening simply to put the knight on e6 and checkmate. So if instead, to defend the checkmate, black would have to try to take the pawn, for instance, on d7. But now bishop e6, threatening another checkmate in one move, pinning the knight on d7. Now king c8, trying to escape, doesn't work, because, for instance, queen takes, king b8, this is a beautiful mate. Discovered attack with the bishop, and the knight at the same time is guarding this a7 square. So at this point, Levenfish resigned. It is the 19th move, very, very short game, in which a top-class player falls into some combinative attack by the world champion Alexander Alekhine, a really genius of the attack. So this was all for today. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you in other videos.